everyone. Nice to meet you all. My name is Josh Neuroth. I lead our product team at Ankr, which is, we've been around for about 4 years now, and we are an infrastructure protocol. And I'm going to be talking about infrastructure today. Now, infrastructure is a little bit abstract. I think some of us might have an idea of what infrastructure is, just it's out there somewhere. How many of you were a little irritated at the construction delays this morning? Yeah, a number of us. I know I was irritated last night when I bought Wi-Fi on my flight and then it died 2 minutes later. You know, and these are infrastructure things that our infrastructure, especially in North America, is really, really good, but yeah, it's still there invisible, and we still have frustrations. We're depending on other entities, other centralized entities, really, for that infrastructure, right? And infrastructure is such an exciting time, and it's such an exciting space in the Web3 movement. Because decentralization, like, what is even decentralized infrastructure, right? We have this whole new economy that's growing, this whole new tech boom that's happening, but few of us really understand the infrastructure behind it. And that's what I'm going to be talking about today around that. So for me, early on in my career, I couldn't say I knew what like tech infrastructure was, but the developments around this have been really, really exciting. So there's a huge, huge shift happening in the world right now and in the tech space around infrastructure. And we have almost like this redistribution happening in really our tech stacks, our value creation. And I didn't really come up with this. This is from a venture capitalist by the name of Joel Monegro. This is a modified version of that. But you can see here in the diagram that I have in the screen that in Web 2 and whatever came before, the value capture and the value creation was from the application layer. So let me talk through this a little bit. So this is a really interesting how this all worked in Web 2. So I've been working in the infrastructure space for several years. And what was fascinating is that in the late 90s, with the .com boom, so much infrastructure investment was made. We had fiber optic cables going in everywhere. We had little tugboats pulling fiber optic cables around the ocean. We had data centers being built all over the world. And so much, there was tens of billions of dollars of infrastructure that was invested, but the world wasn't ready for it. The .com boom and bust happened in 2000, and that infrastructure just stayed laying there in the ground. And what was fascinating is that there was so much infrastructure that was invested in the world that we were able to see the rise of social media really happen unimpeded by a lack of infrastructure. And so we saw companies like Amazon Web Services really come to market in 2008, 2009, followed by DigitalOcean and all these infrastructure companies. But what's important to realize is the protocol layer in Web 1 and Web 2, HTTP or file transfer protocol, were very, very small, right? They were open source for the most part. They were out there. They didn't capture any value. The real value creation was from the application layer, like the Facebook, the Salesforce, right? And then somewhat on the infrastructure side with AWS, DigitalOcean, that kind of infrastructure. But we're moving into this new space where in Web 3, this is really turned upside down, right? So we have the protocol layer where we have gas fees. We have innovation happening on the protocol layer. And then we have infrastructure supporting that with nodes, with validators, with staking as a service, with liquid staking as sitting right on top of those protocols. And then we have the applications being very small and lightweight. You can run an application now in Web 3, literally in the web browser. You can copy someone's smart contract that you find on Etherscan, right? And in just a few days, you're up and running with your application because you have this infrastructure and you have these like protocols doing the work behind the scenes, which is really, really awesome. But it begs some big questions that we're going to look at today. All right, so I love this. Blockchains are just nodes and wallets, right? If you're thinking about blockchain, maybe you're here, you're seeing what this Futurist Conference is about, or maybe you're an expert with the technology. Blockchains really come down to nodes and wallets, right? At the end of the day, it's just those two things, and then obviously a whole lot of community, a whole lot of people working in that. But nodes are infrastructure. right? And the way that these nodes connect. So let me talk a little bit about a node. So you guys might not know what a node is. Nodes are generally just run the blockchain. Anyone can run a node. You can run a validator. If you have the assets to stake, you can run what's called an RPC node if you're trying to do some development. And so these correspond, the validators and the RPC nodes correspond with the consensus and the execution layer. So just a little bit of tech there. But what we do at Ankr is we build effectively services and a protocol that makes it really easy to work with validators and these types of nodes. So how many of you have heard of Lido here? Lido, yep. So we're a competitor of Lido with our liquid staking product. And then on the execution side, we compete with companies like Infura, but we're building the protocol version of that on the RPC layer. Okay, so what I love about just Web3 infrastructure in general is that literally every single use case in Web3 needs access to better infrastructure. So earlier I talked about how anyone can run a node. If you're wanting to run a node, you should. That's great. But if you're building like a game, an NFT marketplace, a data index, you need like a high performance node service. I just saw one of our customers, their requirements were they needed to talk to a node 30,000 times per second. So let's think about that. So if you're trying to build like an application in this space, you might say, how much Ethereum does this wallet hold? That could be a call to a node that you need to make as a developer, an API call that says, what is the balance on this wallet? Imagine being a data indexer and doing that 30,000 times per second for just one chain like Ethereum or Polygon. That's how fast this is developing, where we need this kind of like very sophisticated, reliable, high performance infrastructure that does that. So if you're a DeFi protocol, you're facilitating swaps. You need to talk to nodes. And this is something that like people don't realize is like if you're building like a DeFi website or an NFT marketplace, you're going to still use AWS or DigitalOcean, that Web 2 technology, to host your website. But in Web 3, you also need to make this connection to the blockchain, right? And you need a very high performance, reliable connection to do that. So we see these really interesting use cases. And what we're doing at Ankr is, and we're like a lead sponsor here, we love supporting this. I haven't seen a whole lot of crypto events in Canada, so it's amazing that this is happening here. But this kind of infrastructure is propelling the growth in this space. Literally, if you're building a DeFi website and you don't have high quality access to nodes, you can't grow. You can only grow to a certain amount. And so you guys have probably, if you're a trader in here, or you traded crypto, you might have been using like a public RPC that went down, and then your MetaMask stops working. These are issues that we need to solve in this space, and we have the solutions for. So one of the ways we're doing this with our protocol, which we just announced today, is we've built this incredible system that allows this whole node network to be effectively community governed by holders of the Ankr token. And so one of the things I think is really important in Web3 is as we build like this future of infrastructure, we don't do it in this way that is completely controlled by venture-backed startups with no community governance. And so the future, because infrastructure is one of the most important foundational layers in this space, it must be owned and really governed by the community. And that's what we're doing with Ankr Protocol. You can see a little bit around this, but just in a nutshell, what this system does is we put nodes all over the world, work with independent node providers, and we make that infrastructure available to developers, to projects, builders in this space, so they can have that reliable, high-performance infrastructure, but be done in a way that's really community-backed, owned, and governed. So that's what we're doing here at Ankr. We're excited to be here at the conference, supporting you guys. I would love to talk about this technology, and one of the best ways is going to be really on Twitter. There's my Twitter. There's the Ankr Twitter. I would love to take Q&A afterwards via Twitter. So if you guys have any questions or want to talk about like, what is this tech, or even just if you have a question about the technology, like I'd love to talk about it on Twitter. So thank you all. Enjoy the show, and I'll see you later.